so it's quite different this to what we normally do on an open evening. But,
yeah.
We haven't got all the little fun games either to
No little puzzles.
No. No sweets either. We normally have a couple of plates of quality street out for people to have.
Yeah.
So sadly, we haven't got any virtual sweets to offer. Never mind. So I brought my calculators as well. I remember last time we chat about calculators, and you thankfully had yours to hand. So I brought mine along this time.
Good work, because I haven't brought mine. I've got a couple of textbooks though, just in case.
I haven't got textbooks handy. I've got my calculators handy. Right.
I think it's been relatively stable, the number of attendees over the last.
Right, so I suppose we better get cracking then, Laurie. So
yep.
Waiting for a question from somebody. I mean, I suppose we could maybe chat a little bit about the course to start with. So, I mean, first of all, I suppose we should introduce ourselves. So I'm Helen Carville. I'm course leader for Maths and Further Maths at QE. And Laurie, if you would like to introduce yourself.
Oh, I thought you were going to do it. I'm Laurie March. I'm one of the maths teachers at QE and teach a bit of further maths as well. So I'll talk a little bit about that after Helen's done some maths stuff.
Yeah, so I mean we offer the two courses, Maths and Further Maths. It's a popular subject, so we have a lot of students take it. We've got I suppose 9 classes we would count it as in the first year doing maths. A couple of those classes are dedicated to students who are doing maths as well as further maths. So then we've got 2 further maths groups as well. So it's pretty popular. Students choose it with all sorts of different other subjects. We obviously get a lot to take it with sciences, but we get students also take it as one of any combination of subjects. And I suppose, I always think 2 important things. You've got to really love maths to do it, and you've got to have the skill. You've got to be good at it. So always bear that in mind. A lot of people think, oh, you ought to do maths. It'll be a good subject to do. But if it's not for you, then please don't think that you ought to do it. You do have to enjoy it, and you do have to kind of have that kind of some bit of skill and bit of flair for it. In terms of course requirements, just a few sort of basic details to start with. We ask for at least a grade 7 at GCSE maths for the maths course, and an average GCSE score of 5.5. And then for further maths, we ask you to have slightly higher requirements, so that's a grade 8 at GCSE, which I think reflects the fact that it is challenging. You need really strong algebra skills. So that, as well as having those good grades in maths, it's the algebra part of the GCSE course that's kind of the really important bit. And you've got to be confident with your algebra skills, because we kind of assume you have that prerequisite sort of skill to start the course, and then we kind of build on that over the course. So can you think of anything else, Laurie, some basic facts there?
So yeah, I mean the way the courses are made up in terms of content is quite algebra heavy. So those skills are really important, but there's a lot of applied knowledge as well, especially in the further maths. So it works very well with physics, for instance. We do a quarter of the content in further maths is mechanics. So it goes really well with physics, but you don't have to do physics alongside. It fits very nicely with it if you do that. And then a quarter of the content in further maths is decision maths, which fits quite well with computer science. But again, you don't have to do the other subject with it, but it is quite a nice one. If you do physics, then you'll see a bit of it twice. And if you do computer science, you'll see a bit of it twice. But we've got plenty of students who do neither of those subjects who do really well in further maths as well.
Yeah.
So it's not a requirement, but it can fit very nicely with those subjects and others.
Yeah, so I'm seeing that we've got a question from Paul there. So we've got our first question popped up. So how many hours of maths work are there in a week? That's both college and homework. Well, you get 5 hours of lessons. So that's 4 lessons. We have 2 lessons that are an hour and a half, and then 2 lessons which are an hour. So that's a total of 5 for all you mathematicians out there. But we also say you should be doing about 5 hours of work outside of lessons to support that work that you do in class. So that's probably quite a bit more than you might be used to at GCSE. And I mean, obviously a lot of our students have, we're asking you to have a good GCSE in maths. A lot of our students who take A-level maths don't necessarily have to work too hard to get a good grade at GCSE, and therefore think they don't have to put that effort in at A-level. But believe me, it is much more demanding. I mean, we go at quite a pace. So, you know, we kind of cover quite a lot of content in the lessons. You get some time in the lessons to practice the new skills that, that you've learned, but then you have to go away after that and consolidate that learning by doing work outside of class. And we set you things called preparation tasks. Some of you might have heard of it as flipped learning. So we set you stuff in advance to do. So, for example, our students this week have just done a little bit of work to prepare for some work on straight line functions, because we're going to assume they've done that and then kind of use that skill that they've worked on in their own time to then use in the lesson. And so we set you bits of homework, kind of stuff to hand in. Often students peer mark their work, so you mark each other's. Teachers set little mini tests every now and again, and then we have assessments. So all of those things you need to be working on out of lessons and regularly revising your notes. And maths particularly has loads of resources available. I mean, we're really spoilt for online resources. I mean, we create some of our own. There are lots of other websites that have got online resources. There are loads of revision books. So there's plenty that you can be doing to keep yourself busy and kind of improving your math skills out of college. Okay. Specific websites we'd be using for maths in QE.
That fit quite well with the end of that answer there.
Yeah. So I mean, we've got. I mean, I suppose in terms of maths website. I mean, obviously we provide all our own materials, so you get textbooks. So we don't rely on. I don't know whether anyone's thinking that. Oh, please tell me we're not using MathsWatch or My Maths. No, we don't use a website like that. So we don't use it for things like homework. We refer you to websites, those sort of things like Exam Solutions, Maths and Physics Tutor, Maths Genie. There are quite a few maths websites around that have video tutorials on and lots of resources. So, you know, we recommend those to students. And you know, so there's a lot out there. And sometimes it's almost too much, and it's kind of knowing which ones to use. So I think, you know, we kind of would suggest to students have a look at those websites. If you go on our QE Maths website, so link to the QE website that you've obviously logged on through tonight. If you go on that maths website, you will see that there are some links to some useful sites on there if you particularly wanted to have a look at those.
Yeah, the other thing we use is the same as pretty much every subject in college, I think now, is Google Classroom to keep track of things, which means that we can specifically link to videos and things, which is the main thing we use the internet for in terms of websites, for video explanations that other people have put on. And obviously we also put on some ourselves too. But the running it all through Google Classroom makes it nice and easy to keep track of. And you'll get used to that through all of the different subjects if you come to QE, because we all use a very similar system to keep it nice and consistent. I will tick that one off as answered.
Why are you doing that? I'm just noticing that, Laurie. I haven't been ticking them off yet.
I'm ticking them off. Don't worry.
Right, okay. So I mean, I'm just going to answer. I noticed there's one about textbooks, so that kind of follows on sort of resources. We supply you with textbooks. We use, I suppose, for the maths course, 4 textbooks. If you do further maths, you get another 4 textbooks as well. So we supply you with those. And the good thing about those textbooks is you also get an access to an electronic version as well, which is basically looks like the textbook online, but it also has all the word solutions to every question that's in that book. So our students do find that really useful. So we supply with textbooks. They're loaned out to you through the college library, so you're responsible for them. So yeah, you wouldn't have to buy any of those.
The exam board links to that as well, because it's Edexcel is the exam board we do, and it's the Edexcel textbook that we use. So if you do Edexcel GCSE, it's, to be honest, all the GCSEs are relatively similar with slightly different ways of asking the question. It's the same with A-level, to be honest. They've all got pretty much exactly the same content. It's organized slightly different on the exam. So Edexcel was one of the reasons we picked it, is because there's an applied exam and then there are 2 pure maths exams. So the content is kept relatively separate from each other, whereas some of the other exam boards have sort of more mixture exams, and we thought it was better to kind of keep it a little more separate to make it easier to revise for. But in essence, they are relatively equal anyway. But we do Edexcel. I'll just tick that one off from Francesca.
How many students have you got in total each year? Currently, it's about 180 students in the first year and 180 in the second year, so it's kind of similar at the minute. So
and about 25 to 30 of those do further maths, so are in 10 hours of maths lessons a week rather than 5. And about 100, and well, that makes 150 odd doing regular maths, only doing the one maths course. But yeah, quite a few. Keep us busy.
Right, so there's quite a few about further maths here. So Laurie, I'll answer a couple and then you can. So I mean, I'll do the more practical ones. You can do the content based. So if you want to take further maths, you also have to take the other maths course. Absolutely, yes. So they are 2 separate A levels. You would get 2 separate qualifications, but you have to be doing A level maths because a lot of the content in that is used for the maths course. So you do have to take maths. Well, if you're taking further maths, is what I was about to say, you have to take maths as well. And so in terms of content, it is different content. I mean, there's obviously an overlap in the sense that some of the skills you learn in the maths course are needed for further maths, but there is quite a bit of difficult content. So that kind of answers that question. Also, there's another question there I can see about can you do maths without taking further maths? Absolutely, yes. The majority of our students, so Laurie mentioned earlier, about 150 students do maths A level, and then we've got about 30 students do maths A level and further maths A level. So you can do maths absolutely on its own, but you can't do further maths without maths. So in terms of content, and there's a couple of questions there, Laurie, about what you study and how different is it to normal maths.
Yeah, so there's also a question I can see from someone saying, what topics do you cover in the maths A level? So it kind of all goes together. To talk through. So the maths A level, regular maths A level, carries pretty much straight on from your GCSE. So the first few topics are kind of the last few topics you would do at GCSE. So lots of graph work, circles and straight lines, transformations of graphs, and simultaneous equations, those sorts of things. That's what we start with, and then that we build on that throughout the first year, and then into the second year, looking at more complicated topics like trigonometry and calculus, which are the 2 of the biggest topics as you go on into sciences at A level and at degree level in engineering and maths and sciences and geography and geology and all of that sort of thing. Pretty much everything relies on you doing those more complicated mathematical processes, and that's the basis of the maths A level. But the key is that it carries straight on from your GCSE, so it's kind of starts off as really hard GCSE for the first couple of weeks or so, and then we kind of build on it and build on it and build on it, and into a couple of topics that you won't have seen before. For the majority of it, the pure stuff, and then there's some mechanics, which is a bit like physics. So if I throw a ball across the room, how do I know how long it's going to be in the air for and how much distance is it covered, and sort of questions like that. And then we do some statistics as well, a bit more complicated than your GCSE statistics, but again, kind of carrying straight on from GCSE. So that's the maths A level I always think of as like the natural progression from a GCSE in maths. The further maths A level is a bit of a bigger jump up. As Helen said earlier, one of the reasons we asked for quite a high grade in it is because it is more challenging. And it covers quite a lot of different content that you'd be unfamiliar with compared to GCSE. So the first thing we did this year, for instance, was complex numbers, which is something that you won't come across at all at GCSE, which is to do with taking the square root of a negative number, which up until now you've always thought of as completely impossible. And then we start off with that, where it's not related really to anything you've done at GCSE, or we will relate it to it, but it's not like the same style of question, so it's quite different. Okay. In terms of what we then go on to do in further maths, is again it's quite broad ranging, but there's still a lot of the trigonometry and calculus that we do from the regular maths, which is kind of what you're building on in further maths. So where the maths A level builds on GCSE maths, some of the further maths A level will build on your A level in maths as well. So we make sure to structure it so that you're not so that you've done it in maths first before you then do it in further maths to a higher level. And then there's more of the applied stuff, so more of the mechanics, which is again the physicsy stuff. And then we also do decision maths, which I mentioned earlier, which is about algorithms and is similar in a way to computer science, but it's a bit more of applied and some more complicated calculus, especially by the end. Are the topics. It's quite tricky to sort of explain because a lot of it will be words that you've possibly not come across before. One of the best ways to do it is you can pretty much just Google it. And Helen, is there a sort of a specification that we link to from the website?
Yeah, I mean, if you go on the website, so the one on the QE page, the sort of QE Maths website, the specification is there, so you can look up and see what the content is. And there's a little summary. There's a couple of little presentations on the first page of the QE Maths website that shows you a sort of summary of the content, but the detail you can find in the spec. And I think they've possibly heard of the word algorithms, Laurie, by now. I think the whole country has heard of the word algorithm following the A-level results. And algorithms are good. Can I just point out that not all algorithms are bad.
People using them might not know how to use them, but
if they
are good things.
Right, okay, so...
Quite a few class size questions there, Helen.
Yeah, so class size, currently our classes are around about, I think about 20 to 22. We've currently got, it's fairly typical. The further maths classes are a bit smaller, maybe around about 15 in those classes. So a couple of people have asked about class size. Is there a limit on the amount of students that can do the courses? Well, no. I mean, not. I mean, we might run out of teachers, but I mean, we obviously kind of, we can predict from year to year roughly how many students. So yeah, I mean, there's not a limit, so we wouldn't turn you away.
No, the more the merrier.
I mean, yes. I mean, absolutely no. Would we do that? I mean, it's, yes, please. I mean, the more the merrier. Yes. I mean, we certainly wouldn't say no, you can't.
I've just seen that Paul, who is helping us on this, in the chat has put a link to the QE Maths website.
Oh, excellent!
By the way.
Yeah.
So we keep talking about the website with all of the links on it. It's just been put in the chat box for you so that you can see that and follow that link so that you can see the website, and then there's some other bits. Oh, it's good without any warning there. Thank you, Paul. There's the website. There's Helen.
Looking dreadful.
And that's what the website looks like. It's very easy, actually. I say you put the link there. It's quite easy to find from the regular QE website. You can find quite easily through courses. There we go. It's trying to. We're not in the same room, so Paul's doing very well to keep up with me there. So you go to the website. Then what do you do, Paul? You go to virtual. Oh no, you don't go to virtual open evenings, or do you? We've got the rest of it there.
Yeah.
We've clearly rehearsed very well there.
And
there you go. There's courses, and then there's all the different courses as well. So obviously there's a maths section that we've been talking about, but every single subject has their own section, and there's lots of different bits in there.
Subject website there. That's what we're at.
There we go. So you can kind of go through all the way, and we put little videos on there as well, and loads of different bits. So that's quite a good, loads of taster sessions and loads of stuff. Thank you, Paul.
Excellent. Right. Good.
Also, while we're on class sizes, there's a question there. Are the classes based off of skill or anything like that? And the answer is no, we don't do any setting based on anything. The only thing we do is with the further maths students, we teach them separately so that we can, like I said earlier, to make sure that you don't do anything in further maths before you've met it in regular maths. We teach the further maths students in a separate class so that we can make sure the order fits because those qualifications are quite linked.
Yeah.
But if you pick to just do regular maths, if you just pick to do A-level maths lessons, there's no setting or anything like that. We just
yeah, and I mean the thing with teaching as Laurie said, now our students who choose further maths are in maths classes as well, but they're not with the students who are just doing maths on its own. So as well as obviously, as Laurie's explained, that means we can kind of slightly change the order of the content a little bit, or we can move some of the further maths topics into the maths lessons. So we've got a bit more flexibility there to teach it that way. And also, obviously students who are doing further maths are generally pretty strong students with good algebraic skills. And so we do try and kind of stretch them, and challenge a bit more in those sessions. So I think that's certainly something that we at QE can do. I would think at other places, maybe that's not so easy if you haven't got such a large number of students picking further maths. Often their students do their maths A level within classes with all the other maths students. That ability to have them in separate classes, I think, is something really good, because we can, as we said, tailor the content, mix and match a little bit, and also kind of provide a bit more stretch and challenge. So I mean, for example, at the minute I've got a maths class in the first year, and I've got a class of students who are doing maths, but who are also doing further maths. And so I am slightly changing what I do and maybe doing extra things with them, just pushing them on a bit harder. We've done a little bit more in terms of the applied work of some of the algebra skills that we've done. So I think that's a real advantage of what we can offer at QE, which I think possibly other places maybe aren't able to do that.
Yeah. So the last question that's open at the moment, but feel free to put more questions in. We're happy to answer them. It's from Elsa. So I'm undecided between further maths and physics. Would it be possible to do engineering with just maths and further maths instead of maths and physics? That's I would say, such a tricky question. Talking about all the career stuff is really, really tricky because there are so many different courses. The basic answer is yes, but the more nuanced answer is you'd be limiting yourself. When it comes to engineering, most places would prefer you to have physics. But the best people to talk to are the careers staff, because they will have such a much better overview than we can have in terms of careers and universities, especially, but apprenticeships as well, and all the different entry requirements and all the different places that you could look at and all the different types of courses, because it's not, there's an engineering course, and then there's chemical engineering, or there's electrical engineering, or there's civil engineering, and there's such a wide range of different things. So my answer for that, and Helen, you can feel free to disagree as the engineer in the room, that you'd be generally better off with physics than without when it comes to engineering, because it puts less of a limit on where you can apply. We always suggest with further maths, it should be taken as a 4th A level anyway. So actually, if you do further maths, we would generally suggest you do maths, further maths, and then 2 other subjects anyway. So if you were looking to do engineering and we weren't sure about further maths, we'd probably suggest do maths and further maths and do physics and 1 other. My camera's just gone off. Can you still see me, Helen?
Yeah, I can't see you, Laurie. No, I can see your name, but I'll kind of keep going there.
You keep going.
So yeah, I mean, it's funny because I was just about to say what you'd said about further maths, and that yes, we would always recommend that has to be a 4th subject. I mean, we generally, students at QE will do 3 subjects, and 3 subjects is the standard thing. If you're picking further maths, it does have to be done as a 4th subject.
Oh, yeah, put it back.
So we kind of, and the reason for that is that if you just do maths, further maths, and 1 other subject, that is very narrow. You are kind of limiting yourself to a very narrow program of study. And I've got to be honest, students find further maths tough. Even some of our really strong students, find further maths very challenging. I would say it's one of the hardest A levels to do. And so, it can sometimes turn out that the students think, I've maybe regretted that, which is why we make sure students do it as a 4th. What can happen at the end of the 1st year is, if you are still studying those 4 subjects, including further maths, if you find actually this is proving too challenging and the workload's too much, that we generally enter students for the AS exam in further maths at the end of the 1st year, and then you could stop doing further maths after that year. I mean, ideally, we want you to sign up to do further maths for the full 2 years, and the majority of our students who choose further maths will do the full 2-year course. But it is quite a tricky choice. It's, as I said, it would have to be a 4th subject, which obviously increases the workload. But if we didn't do that, then we think that would be kind of not a good program of study to have you on, because it could be quite limiting. And also, you've kind of got 2/3 of what you're doing is maths, and if you are finding it heavy going, then that is going to be quite a challenge for you. Can I still do A-level maths if I don't get a 7? Well, really, the answer to that is no. And I mean, the reason we ask for a 7 is because of the standard that you need to be at. I mean, unlike maybe other subjects, which you can choose to do for A-level, you are picking something up that you have to have prerequisite skills in. So, I mean, if you're starting a new subject, and obviously at QE we've got loads of subjects that you can study that you won't have done at school. But for maths, we're relying on those kind of 14 years you've been doing before you get to us of maths. So, you know, you have to have a certain standard of math skills. So we're saying really a grade 7 is about the right level that you'd need to be at. Anything less than that, we'd be quite concerned that maybe your skills weren't strong enough. And you know, we kind of hit the ground running from day one. You are expected to be able to do certain skills. There isn't time dedicated to going back over all the GCSE stuff. We assume that you are up to speed with higher GCSE, particularly the algebra skills. So, you know, that certainly is why we say a grade 7. And I think that is pretty much typical across all school sixth forms and colleges. A 7 is now pretty much the standard entry requirement for A-level maths. Right, okay. So so it's one there about if you're not performing after a certain amount of time, will they be taken off the course? So that's quite a scary prospect. I mean, obviously, if you start maths as, you know, as a new first year, you know, clearly within that first couple of days, I mean, clearly if you've made a mistake, then I suppose we can kind of say, well, yeah, maybe let's change what you're doing. But you need to be pretty certain that subject is for you from the beginning, which is why we give you some work in advance to do. We also give you a test fairly soon, just to check that the subject is for you. So we like to try and think that really in those first couple of days you get a pretty good feel for what maths is like. And I mean, the thing is obviously in bridging, which hopefully will be later in the summer, we kind of, you know, show you what it's like. So we'd hope that people are picking maths who know what they're letting themselves in for. If you're really struggling, then obviously we would kind of, you know, recommend certain actions, so put in some support for you, recommend what you need to do outside of class, what you should be doing in class. So, you know, we wouldn't just say, right, that's it, off you pop. You know, that's not good enough. I mean, clearly, you know, if students are struggling, then we need to try and find out why they're struggling and what we can do to help. And so, you know, that would be what we would try and do. We're not going to kind of say, right, off you go. You know, you're not good enough. We would like to try and think we'd sort out that, you know, if you were struggling. But I mean, the important thing is to make that decision, get the correct decision, I suppose, at the start, and be absolutely certain that it's for you. And that kind of ties in with the entry requirement for GCSE, for the GCSE grade, because we think, you know, that is a kind of good indicator. If you're not at that level, you're possibly going to struggle. So, you know, you've then got to think to yourself, am I good at algebra? And as I said, we kind of give you some stuff before you start anyway, to try and get you to fully understand the level of skill you need to be at. And then hopefully you're not picking something you're going to struggle with. But yeah, if you do, then obviously we put support in place to try and help you.
So Thomas Rowe, would you recommend doing further maths if you've got a grade 8 or 9s, haven't previously considered doing 4 A levels? I think that is very much like you couldn't talk to better people to recommend further maths. We're both maths teachers, so yes. But the main thing I think you've always got to think about with the further maths A level especially is how much you enjoy it. I think you've got to really like maths to do the A level in it, because it's a lot of work. It's 5 hours of teaching time, and then 5 hours, like Helen said earlier, generally of doing work in your own time. You've got to enjoy it. With further maths, you've really got to really like it, okay? Because it's doubled up. So you've got 5 hours of maths lessons a week and 5 hours of further maths lessons a week, and the equivalent set of homeworks and tests and extra reading and extra preparation work and all of that stuff that goes with that. So if you're sitting there at school and thinking, okay, hopefully I'm going to get a grade 8 or a 9 and therefore qualify for further maths on our entry requirements, and you really enjoy the lessons and you enjoy doing the work, absolutely, massively recommend it. If you're sitting there thinking, I think I can get a grade 8 or a 9, and I like it, but I don't really look forward to doing the work, and it's okay, but I prefer other subjects, then probably no, I wouldn't recommend it, because it is a lot. And if you end up regretting your choice, you're sitting in 10 hours of lessons worth of choice that you're not a massive fan of. And you do better and get better grades if you'd have picked something, even if you still do, you know, the maths A level because you really like it. But if you'd have picked, you know, a physics and a chemistry or a geology or a psychology or something else that interests you and that you really want to do. Further maths is kind of a slightly special case when it comes to it, because you've got double that amount of time. It's, you know, all A levels are quite intense. Doing 2 in maths is pretty intense. If you don't want to be there, it's a really tough place to be. If you want to be there, if you want to do maths, it's absolutely brilliant. That's what I'd say about it. So it's very much up to you to know how much you like being in the maths lessons.
Yeah, and I mean,
if it's only a bit.
And I think also what's important to point out there as well is, I mean, obviously you're looking at your overall GCSE profile as well. So not just the GCSE in maths. I mean, you know, because we do get students who've got a high GCSE in maths, but then maybe not a strong GCSE profile overall. And that would maybe suggest that you might find it kind of hard going, because you've got to remember you're doing a program of study. It's not just about one subject. You've got to look at all the stuff that you're doing, because you have to you know, manage your time well. You've got to devote an amount of time to all the subjects that you choose. Yeah. So as well as, you know, if you're really good at maths, great, but you also then have to remember that you are doing that as particularly if you're doing further maths, that would be one of 4 subjects. So you need to be the sort of student that is you know, going to be able to cope with doing 4 subjects. So you need to generally your overall program of study, and also how good you are at your GCSEs, and how you think you would cope with the level of work, as well as obviously the work involving further maths as well. So it's a, you know, it's an important choice to make. And I mean, it's the sort of thing we can, you know, discuss individually with students, and we do that certainly. You know, if we have further open events, or if we manage to get bridging done, and if we, you know, when we meet you at enrolment, I mean, these are things that we do talk to you about, and you know, so hopefully you come to the right decision. And just picking up, there's a question there about, if you start further maths and you're struggling, could you drop onto the further math, or could you drop onto the maths course? Well, you'd be doing maths anyway, so remember that you have to do maths, and if you're doing further maths, you have to do maths as well. So I mean, what we'd say there is, really, if you're signing up to do further maths, it has to be that commitment. I mean, you're committing to it really for 2 years. As I said, there is that kind of situation where at the end of the first year, some students do decide not to continue after discussing their progression plans and looking at their A-level package overall. Then some students do decide not to continue, but we certainly wouldn't want students just dropping out partway through the year. So if you choose to do it at the start, then, you know, it's got to be the right decision at the beginning, and then you would you know, study that throughout that first year. I mean, what we don't want is students going, oh, you know, I'll have a go, or I'm not keen. I mean, we need you to kind of commit to the course. But as I said, that there is that option after a year, that if you think it's kind of heavy going, then, you know, as I said, a few of our students do decide not to continue, but the majority will pick it up for 2 years. So, you know, it's an important decision to make. And as I said, you know, it's kind of almost like you need almost like a sort of one-to-one guidance on that. And we would certainly offer that to any students who are thinking about it and are not sure. If it's not a dead sort of obvious choice, we would obviously discuss it with you and talk generally about how you work and what are the subjects you're doing, and hopefully help you get to the right decision. Okay, so we've run out of questions there, so I don't know whether anybody wants to chip in here. I mean, we can keep going a little bit longer, so if anyone would like to add any more questions. So
I think one of the things we've talked a lot about further maths, which is really good from our point of view, because we want as many maths and further maths students as we can get. We want you to do maths and things like that. But if you're sitting there thinking, oh, I don't want to do further maths, why are they talking about further maths a lot? Like Helen said right at the start, the majority of students actually don't do further maths. The majority of students do maths A level, which is the same as doing any other subject at A level, counting for one of your grades. Further maths is there, and it's a really good option. But for certain students, if you're really interested in it, then it's brilliant. It's by no means do you have to do it at all. Okay, so we have the majority of students do maths A level. Don't let us continually getting very enthusiastic about further maths as maths teachers make you think that you have to do it at all. Okay, it's really good as an option, but you can just do, if you really like biology, for instance, we have lots of students doing maths, biology and psychology who really want to do biology and psychology, for instance, and maths is a supporting A level for that, and that is absolutely fine. And then we have lots of students who want to go down an engineering route where maths is one of their main A levels, and then we have students who want to do a maths thing, and therefore they do often maths and further maths. So maths is their main focus. It's you know, there's a big wide-ranging set of things, whether they use maths as kind of a third option, as a support for geology and biology and psychology, sociology, or even history, law, all sorts of different combinations are absolutely fine. You don't have to be sitting there thinking maths is your main focus. Okay, it will be for some students and it won't be for others, and that's absolutely fine.
I mean, I think with maths as well as a choice, it is, sometimes can be quite a nice contrast to other subjects. So, I mean, we do get students doing maybe a couple of kind of sort of humanities subjects. So a lot of the content of those courses is a lot of written work, quite a bit of reading. And then the maths is kind of quite different. And I mean, you know, I suppose generally students who pick maths are possibly more sciencey, numerate students, but we do get quite a mixture, and sometimes it's quite a nice contrast. And, you know, and if you enjoy it, you know, if it's something you've really enjoyed at school and that you've got, you know, quite a good kind of skill in, then, you know, it's worth considering alongside your other subjects. If you think, yeah, I actually enjoy that aspect, I like that problem solving aspect, I like the fact that you've got a kind of method to follow, you've got a solution to find. That can be quite a nice subject to do, alongside all sorts of other things, as well as Laurie said, the obvious things where maths is, you know, a good subject to study with lots of subjects, and certainly it's a good qualification to have. There's quite a lot of data out there saying, you know, how generally people who've got good maths qualifications generally can kind of earn more money, and, you know, kind of are quite sought after by employers, because the math skills are really desirable as an employability skill by many employers. And so, you know, even if you're not going on to study maths at kind of university, or a maths related subject at university, if you've got a maths A level, then, you know, that's certainly an advantage for lots of things you're looking at. But again, don't do it because that's an advantage. Do it because you like it, and you're good at it, and you think you'll get a good A level in it. And you know, so it's certainly a desirable qualification to have for many reasons.
Right, should we give it another minute or so?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen any more questions pop up, but our attendees has dropped off a little bit there. But
yeah, we'll give it a minute. But please type in any questions if you'd like to ask any, and if there aren't any questions, we'll sign off in a minute or so.
And I mean, just remember as well, if you go to that website that Paul was showing you earlier, so there's on the front page, there's a kind of slightly grim picture of me, and also a kind of link there to email me directly if you wish, or you can just kind of email inquiries at QE. So I mean, if you've got any more questions that haven't popped up tonight, then please ask.
Another question.
Someone asking there about music and maths. I always think are a perfect partnership. But yeah, we've had loads of students do either music or popular music along with maths. But they do not really go well together. Oh, absolutely no. But there's quite a thing about maths and music being quite related. So, I mean, just to reassure you there, Emma, absolutely. We've had, I mean, some of my really good students have done music or popular music. So yeah, that's
something about learning an instrument. Learning an instrument and all of the
I mean, I often use that analogy in you know, maths is about learning skills, and I often link it to sport and music. You know, you need to practice, you need to learn that skill. If you don't practice, you lose the skill, you need to get better. So yeah, so please, that would be a good combination. Also quite a nice mixture of things, I think, as well. So economics and maths. Yeah, pretty. I mean, there's obviously not masses of maths content in economics. It's more about the way that you learn to sort of solve problems, analyze things, but also being numerate, being able to understand data, understanding that kind of thing certainly would help with economics. And quite a lot of our students do those two subjects as part of their package of 3. So I think certainly that it certainly can't not help. I mean, it's not compulsory, but it is quite a popular pairing.
I think economics is one where it's a new subject that you start at A level. So obviously you start from the beginning of it. If you go on further to study economics at universities and things like that, your maths A level, if you did a maths A level, would become more and more important. As the economics gets more complicated, the maths gets more complicated. So although the maths A level and the economics A level, there are a few bits in common, but they don't seem to match up perfectly. Although it's, as Helen said, being numerate and analysing data is going to help you generally with economics. If you go on and you wanted to study that further, a few of the top universities actually ask for a maths A level alongside an economics A level in order to get in, because the maths does get quite complicated, and it's a lot of it is what we actually study at A level, maths. As you go on to degree level, it kind of ties in with what Helen was saying about math skills being generally desirable. Economics is one where, for university, having a maths A level would be really helpful if you wanted to do a university course in economics or something along those lines, or if you wanted to go into accountancy or actuarial sciences or anything like that, having a maths A level will be generally helpful, even if the A levels don't always look like they link perfectly. I'll mark that one as answered. Answered. So last time we appealed for more questions, we got a few. We could be on here all night. But yeah, feel free. I'll give you another minute.
I think we'll get kicked off for whoever's up next, I think, eventually.
The attendance just slightly dwindling. Yeah. But yeah, please ask any more questions if you want to ask us anything else.
And I mean, you can always follow it up. You know, there's links there, and just or email just directly to the college. Probably the easiest things to do, and they'll make sure it gets passed on. We missed the physics webinar.
They're recorded.
They're being recorded, aren't they? Yeah.
Yeah, I assume so that they can be watched at a later date.
I don't know whether there's another one. I mean,
not this week, I don't think.
I mean, we haven't got one planned, but I honestly think we probably will be doing further one. I'm seeing Paul's typing an answer in there, so I'm assuming that you can watch them. If not, again, any questions you've got, please follow that up with physics. But I would think certainly, I mean, we were providing certainly more open. I mean, ideally, we'd love to be doing open evenings in college to see you in person would be lovely. But until that's possible, then I would have imagined we would still, you know, we'd still kind of offer sort of online things. So I would imagine this is probably not the, you know, it's not necessarily the last one of these that we're probably going to do.
No, it'll either be hopefully in person, but if not, then we'll definitely do an online one. There's not a chance that we're going to just leave it until the summer. Because there'll be plenty of people who have missed this for whatever reason, so want to come along and meet us and ask questions. And there's probably plenty of people that are on the call who in a week's time go, oh, I wish I'd asked that question, at which point we'll have another one of these, or preferably you'll actually be able to be inside the building and talk to us there. Right,
well, I think that's probably it then. So just thank anyone that's still here for coming along. And sadly it wasn't in person, but hopefully we've answered all your questions, and please feel free to email if you've got any more.